So I built this particular app right here. It's a desktop application where we basically need to enter someone's name and then their email, and then once we hit on save, we should be able to save their details to the database. And I'm basically utilizing Tkinter to do this, and we're going to be able to save that to a database. So I do have database created for this. So this is database user data underscore db right there, and I do have a table called the users right here. So we do not actually have anything yet on this, but if we go ahead and then fill this form out, so I'm going to just do code Tkinter as a name in here, and then let's put this. Let's say this is going to be the email, and I'm going to just do at code Tkinter maybe .com as the email, and then if we hit on save in here, you see we have this alert right here. All right, that says data saved successfully, and if you hit on OK, it clears the formatting on this particular form. Then if you check our database right here, let's hit on browse, you see that the data a kind of came in. All right, so it was successfully saved into this. If you want to save another person, you can still do that. So I'm going to just do Chito Sam, and we can put the email right here. So this is going to be Chito Sam maybe at gmail.com, and then when we hit on save right here, it says data saved successfully, and if we refresh it here, you see that still came in. All right, so I want to show you how to actually build this up right now without wasting more time. And to do that is really going to be very simple. So what I want to do first of all is I want to go ahead and then empty okay, what I'm going to do is just remove this particular database entirely from this particular place. All right, so to do that is really going to be very simple. So let me drop this right here, and I can also get rid of the database right here. All right, so I do have that deleted. So what I want to do is to go ahead and create a new one right here, and I'm going to just call this let's just call this Tkinter DB, and let's go ahead and create that. And I basically would like to create a table in here, so let's call the table users, and let's hit on go, and we can put the details in here. This is going to be user ID, and this is going to be int. Then I'm going to just have 11 character in here, and we'll go ahead and then make sure that we set this to primary key and then auto increment. And I think we just filled out the form automatically right here, except that we need to work on this, which is basically going to be that of the date that the insertion kind of came in. So we need to set current timestamp so that it can actually come in automatically, and we can go ahead and hit on where it says save. Now we do have, what is it called, we do have a table called the users, and the columns that are inside just a place where we can fill in the name and then the email address. So what we want to do right now is to go back to our development environment, and we can start working. So to do that, I'm going to just go ahead and close all of this that we have in here, and what I want to do right here is go ahead and create a new file, and let's go ahead and call this, I'm going to just call this Tkinter underscore something like let's call this data, and it's going to be .py. All right, so we have that saved right here. So this is basically what we're going to be able to run and be able to get whatever that we really want to get. So the first thing I want to do is to import some libraries right here, and the first one is going to be Tkinter. So I'm going to just do import, and it's going to be Tkinter, and I'm going to import that as an alias. So I'm going to just do as tk right here, and the next one I basically want to import is going to be the message boxes. So I'm going to just do from, and it's going to be Tkinter, of course. And what I basically want to import from that place is going to be the message boxes. So I'm going to do import, and I'm going to do message and call that box right there. And after that, since we want to be able to save the data into a database, then we need to import our MySQL connector. So I'm going to just do import, and I'm going to just do MySQL, and it's going to be just be .connector right there. With that line, we've been able to connect or import our SQL. So down here, I want to create a function. So we'll just do function to save data. To implement this, what we basically want to do down here is really very simple. So I'm going to do def, and the name of the function is actually going to be called a save underscore to maybe something like MySQL, like that. All right, and we're going to throw in our with the parentheses in here. Then down here, the first thing I want to do, I want to create a variable. Let's call that name, and we're going to just basically use that to grab onto the name that has been typed into the form. So we're going to just do name underscore entry, and this is just going to be .get. So we're going to just do .get to be able to get whatever the person typed into the form. All right, and to get rid of some extra spaces, we can just do .strip right here. All right, we use this function to strip in case someone is actually typing something into the form and the person goes ahead to hit some extra spaces. So we want to use this to get rid of the the extra spaces right there. So I want to copy this, then on the next line paste that, sorry about that, space this, and I want to change this to email, and we basically want to get the email, right? So I want to change this to email, so have email right there, and that is just that. So now the first thing I want to do, or the next thing I want to do right here, is to just check whether someone really typed something into the form or not. And to do that, I'm going to use if statement, because I wouldn't actually like people to be able to submit an empty form. All right, so maybe they just see something like extra spaces and then try to submit the form, which is going to just basically going to cause us to just get an empty data into the database. All right, so I will just do, to get rid of, I will just do if not name. Of course, we do have a variable called name up there, or not email. What I basically want to do right here, we have imported our message box right here, so we can use this to like tell them what is actually wrong if they do something of that nature. So to do that, I'm going to just do message box, and I'm going to just do the show. So it's going to be the show info, or we're going to just use something like warning right here. So let's do show warning, and within the show warning right here, we need to have something like a title. So I'm going to put a title right here, just say something like warning, and after that we can go ahead. I'm going to introduce the comment here, and the message that we basically want them to see is going to be, we're going to just say something like both fields are required. All right, just to let them know that the two fields in there are actually required for them to really fill out. All right, and down here we're going to just basically do a return down here, and that is just that on that line. So the next thing I want to do right here is going to be very simple. I want to just use try right here, and what I want to do is to try to go ahead and then connect to my database. And to do that is very simple. I want to put that in a variable, so this is going to be con, and we'll go ahead and set that to mysql dot connector right there. And if we do that right here, okay, we still need to do dot connector again, not dot connector but dot connect, all right, just to be able to connect. So within this particular place right here, we can set up, let me scroll up a little bit, we can go ahead and then set up the things that we need right here. All right, like we need to grab onto the host name, the username, password, and then the database name within this particular place, just the typical way of trying to connect to a database. So to do that, let's put that in the variable called a host, and I'm going to just set that to be equal to, it's actually called a host. All right, so I'm going to just do local host right here, which is just basically going to stand as the host. All right, so have that in there. We need to separate that with a comma, and the next one is actually to go ahead and then set the username, and the username in my own case is really going to be something like root, because I did not actually set any formal name for it. But if you are actually online, if you are doing this online, or you are in a production application, you may have to like go ahead and then set up the username right there. All right, but I do not actually have, so I'm going to just basically set it to the default, which is actually called the root. So the next one is actually going to be the password, and I do not actually have a password, so this is going to be set to an empty strings right there. And the last thing that we need is going to be the database, so I'm going to just do database right there, and go ahead and then set that to be equal to the database name that we just created, which I think I have forgotten the name, so we call that this is Tkinter underscore db. So let's go back in here and just call that Tkinter underscore DB, and that's just basically the name of the database right there. So we have that right there, and we do not actually need to introduce a comma down here, because that's actually the last item of that particular thing that looks like an array in the or dictionary. So the next thing I want to do to be able to connect right now is to use cursor. All right, and if you want to use that, it's actually called a cursor, I mean a con, which is the variable we have up there, and I'm going to do dot cursor right here. All right, and you have that right there. But however, I want to put this in something like a variable, and to do that is really very simple. What I'm going to do right now is go ahead and I'm going to just do cursor right here, and I'm going to just basically use that as a variable. All right, I kind of doing what we're really doing right here on this particular line. So the next thing I want to do is going to be very simple, and that's just to write our SQL statement. And to do that, I'm going to get down here and let's put that in something like a variable, and we're going to just basically call that a SQL, and we can go ahead and then put our SQL code within this course that I kind of have it here, and it's really very simple. So to insert something into a database using Tkinter, and basically I'm just writing the traditional SQL at this particular place right here. We're going to do insert into, and we want to name the table name, so we call that users, because if you take a look in here, if you want to confirm, see that we do have a table. And the next thing we want to do is which columns do you want to insert this data into. We need to spell out the columns right here. So we have a name, and we also have something like an email, so we need to spell out those columns right there. So after that, the next thing you want to do is really very simple. So we are going to get it out right here and just do values or values like that. And we can go ahead and then specify the values right here. All right, so we can go ahead and then add something like placeholders right here. So if we can do %s or whatever letter you want to basically use in there. And the next one is also going to be maybe %, the same thing in there. And we can actually insert the actual values at a later time, but we're just trying to prevent a SQL injection by using this right here. And down here, what we want to do on the next line is to now create the actual values. All right, so to do that, I'm going to just do values right here, and we can actually, let's just basically call this var. We don't have to type that completely, and we can go ahead and do this. So within the brackets right here, so we do have variables that we call their name, and we also have email right there. So we're going to just use this, capture these things from the form right here, and then be able to now go ahead and then insert that. All right, so just basically what that is. So down here, we can actually go ahead and just do something like cursor.execute to be able to execute that and also insert that. So we're going to just do cursor, and I'm going to just do dot execute, and basically what I want to execute is these two variables right here. So I'm going to just copy this, put that as the first value right there, and then the next one is actually going to be this var right here. So I'm going to copy this and then put that right here. So with that, we've been able to like execute this line and then also go ahead and then to insert the data which are dynamically gotten from here. All right, so this was one of the secure ways to really write this kind of SQL to make sure that you do not actually allow people to insert some kind of injections into your code. All right, so down here, the next thing I want to do is to go ahead and just do con. I'm going to do .commit to be able to commit the data, and after that is being completed, you can go ahead and then close the connection right here. So if you do cnn or nn right here, and you can actually go ahead and then close the database right here. All right, with that simple line in there. So we have that right there. So we've been able to like find a way to like insert our data into your database. And once we complete that, we need to find a way to like tell the users of our application that whatever that they have actually the kind of a saved was successfully saved or not, or something like that nature. So to do that, let's try to like give them a message in here, and I'm going to just do that. This is going to be show info. I'm going to use show info this time around, and within the show info, of course, we need a title in here, so which we are going to just basically call success. That's the title, and after that, the message we want to like display to them, we can just say something like data saved successfully, just like that. All right, so we have that on that particular line, and what we really have saved so far, we can just go ahead and outline them down here. All right, so to do that, what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to just do name underscore entry, and basically what I'm trying to do right here is once I save the data, the next thing that I need to do is to try to clear the entries. All right, I want to clear the entry from the database, or I mean from the form. All right, so to do that, I think I need to put like a comment in here, guys. So let's do comment and say something like clear the form inputs. All right, and if you want to clear the form inputs, it's really very simple. The things you need to do is really very simple. I'm going to just grab onto name underscore entry, so it's going to be entry, and we're going to just go ahead and just do .delete, just to delete that particular name right there. All right, so let's open this up, and we're going to just do 0, comma, and we're going to just do Tkinter or TK right here, and we're going to just do .end. All right, and that right there. So I want to copy this line and then put that on the next line, and this one is just basically going to be to clear the email. All right, so to do that, I'm going to just do email. We have that right there. So the next thing I want to do, we do have a try up here from this particular place. So if we have any errors, we'll find a way to like display the errors down here, and I'm going to just, that's going to be an except right here, and what you basically want to do is I'm going to just do MySQL dot, maybe there is an error in the connection, right? So we can just do connector right here and then try to like give out whatever error that could actually be. So this is going to be error, and what you want to do is I'm going to just set that as ERR just to make that short for me. And then down here, what I want to do is just do message box, and I'm going to just do dot show. This is going to be, we're going to just basically show do something like show error right here, right? So I'm going to just do show error or show, I think it's just basically correct right there. So let's give this a title in here. So this is going to be error, and if you have that in that, so the next parameter that is needed is we'll just first of all format this, and I want to go ahead and just say something like something went wrong. All right, so put that in there, and we can just break the next thing in there. So this is going to be n, and we can go ahead and then show them whatever the error is. All right, we're going to dynamically just grab onto whatever error that is, and then kind of display it for them on the next line right there. So with the line that I've just kind of outlined, right? So that is it on that particular line. Now, so far we can actually save the changes that we have right here. We've created the dynamics of the application right here. So if we hit on run right here, we're basically not going to go. Of course, we should be able to like get some errors right here, which we should be at a later time we'll deal with that. But what this is simply talking about is that we actually do not even have something like a GUI right here to be able to like display some certain things for us right here. Okay, so all right, so let's even read that message. I think okay, this particular thing is not actually closed. So if we check or code right here, you see that it's actually not closed right here. So we need to close this and then save the changes right back. And if you run that again, we wouldn't actually get the UI on the interface right here. All right, so we wouldn't actually get that. And what we basically need to do is to try to create our UI down here. All right, so to do that, we can just get down here, and I'm going to just do sorry about that. So I'm going to just put a comment in here, and what I want to do is I'm going to just do GUI, and to create a GUI setup, you probably know about this. So we can put that in a variable, and this is going to be root, and we'll set that to be equal to, this is going to be tk, and we're going to just do .tk like that. And the next thing we want to do after we do that is to go ahead and then create a title. So this is going to be root. I'm going to just do .title right there, and what we basically want to call this, we can go ahead and then do that right here. So I'm going to just put that in quotes. I'm going to just do user. All right, so we're going to just basically use that as the title right there. So the next thing is to set how large the window is actually going to be. All right, so to do that, we can still put that in root, and this is going to be the geometry. So we do geometry right here, and then within this place where we have geometry, everything has to be in strings anyway. So we'll just do 400, or this is going to be 400 by 300 right there. All right, so it's going to be 300, and we'll have that set out right there. And then after that, we can go ahead and then maybe configure the background. All right, so if you want to configure the background, we can still put that into a root, and this is going to be dot, and I'm going to just do configure, and to get the background, we're going to do bg right here and set that to be equal to, and whatever color you want to use. So I'm going to just do hash, and I'm going to just do 0b2545. all right, so this is just basically the color that I want to basically use. And this is gonna, if I put a comment in here, and I'm gonna just say navy, this is just basically a navy blue background. All right, so navy blue background right there. So after that, if we scroll a little bit down, I want to go ahead and then create some headings for myself. That's basically talking about the labels that I would like to have. All right, so let's put a comment in here and just do heading, and within this particular place, to work on the heading, I'm gonna just do title right here and underscore label, and this is just basically a variable. So we're going to just do tk right here, and I'm going to just do dot label, and open up our bracket in here, and I'm going to just do root, because we want to just basically put that into the root of the application. And we can do text right here, and what type of text do you want to have? What do you want to have as a text? We're going to just do something like user, and this is going to be info, and we're going to work on the font. So to do that, we're going to just do font, and we'll set that to be equal to, and what we basically want to do within the font will be the font family. We can also set how bold that could be or something of that nature. So I would like to use something like Helvetica right here. So to do that, I'm going to just do Helvetica right here and introduce a comma, and I want that to just be something like 18 pixels, right? And I want it to be also bold, right? So I'm going to do just something like bold in here, and that is just that on that particular line. So the next thing I want to set in here is going to be the background of that particular title right there. All right, so to do that, you can just do bg, and you can go ahead and set that to the following hexadecimal values. So I'm going to just do hash right here, and I'm going to just do 0. All right, so same thing that we just kind of have up here. So I think it's common practice to just basically copy this and just make sure that we kind of put that right here. All right, so we introduce a comma, and then for the foreground, I'm just do fg right here, and then go ahead, and then I'm going to just basically do white right here, and this foreground is actually just the color of the text. All right, so we have that in there. If you take a look at that, I think we're basically gonna need this we need to have a closing bracket in here, and this one right here, I think this has to be closed somewhere like here. So open this and then close this right here, and the first one that was actually opened right here, because this should be closed right there. All right, so if we have this right here, the next thing I want to do is, if we get down here, we want to go ahead and unpack this to the window, and to do that we can just do title underscore label right there, and we can go ahead and then do dot pack. All right, and we'll go ahead and we're going to just set a padding to that. So to do that, we're going to just do padding and set that to be equal to 15 pixels. All right, let's make sure we type 15 pixels right there. All right, just 15 like that should be able to kind of align that as pixels. So what I want to do is I want to copy this, and I should just basically duplicate this so that I can use that to modify and represent the rest of the things that we have on this particular page, right? All right, so let's go ahead and paste that in here. And what I want to do is let's first of all put a comment in here, and what we're going to do down here is just say something like name label and like the entry right here. All right, so we want to work on that with these lines that we have in here. So to do that, to work on the name, I'm going to take away this variable right here, and what we'll now have is we'll have a tk.label, and then we do have root right here. Then for the text, we need to change this text right here. Instead of this, we're going to just change this to something like name, and let's make sure we put something like this in here. And on the next one, we do have fonts, and we're setting the font to Helvetica, but I want to change the size of the font, so I'll change that to 12 pixels in there. And if we don't want to set the boldness, we can take this away. We don't have to have that as a bold, so let me just take this away from here. All right, and I think we just basically also need to take that away from there. And then after that, we worked on the background right here. All right, so that's just basically what we're having here. So, and after that, we have the foreground right here, and then we are just basically setting that to white. However, once we are done with that, what I want to do next is to just try to pack this. I'm going to cut this away from here, and it's going to delete this, and I want to just basically pack that on the same line right here. So this is going to be dot pack, and once we do dot pack right here, we can go ahead and then set set the value that we want to make use of right here. So this particular one is going to be 10 by 0 pixels. So I'm going to do 10 by 0 right here. All right, so that line is okay the way that it is right now. And all right, so we do have the values right here, but I think if we want to set like two values right here, you need to put that in brackets. So I'm gonna just do this right here, and yeah, so this is just basically how it should be. All right, so this is the first one right here. If you hit on this was actually a kind of a close right here, and then if you hit on this closed right here, then this particular one kind of a close right here. All right, so that's just basically how that should just basically look. So the name entry down here, so I'm gonna just do, if I create a variable right here and call that name entry, and what I basically want to do with the name entry right here, basically let's go ahead and just do tk right here, and we're going to just do dot entry, and within this brackets in here, we're going to just first of all, we're going to set the root in here, and we can just go ahead introduce a comma first of all right here, and then we can set the font, and this is going to be equal to, let's take that away. So we should just basically use this type of brackets in here. So we can still set the values right here, like this here variable right here that we just kind of got right here. So I'm going to copy that and I put that within this particular place, and to set that to be vertical, we can set the value of the text to 2 pixels right there, and after that we can also set the width. So we can introduce a comma here and then go ahead and set the width. So this is going to be width right here, and we can go ahead and set that maybe to something like 30 pixels, right? And after that, the next thing that we basically want to set is going to be the bg. So we'll just do bg right here, and we can set that to be equal to whatever color we basically want to use. So in our own case, I'm going to just set that to e. So we need to start out like with a hash, so this is going to be e8f0fe right there. All right, so that's just basically what we need on that particular line. All right, and finally right down here, I want to pack that name entry right there. So this is going to be name entry, and I'm going to do dot pack. And so if we want to pack it, we can just basically set that to paddy and set that to be equal to maybe 5 pixels right here, and that should just basically do it on that particular line. So what I want to do right here is to just go ahead and copy this. All right, so once you have that copied, I want to paste that on the next line, and this is just the email label, all right, that we just are working with on this particular line, and we need to change this. So this is going to be email instead of name, and also need to change that from here, right? So I think that every other thing on this particular place should be the same, except that we need to change this to email, and that should be that. So down here, the next thing we want to do is to create a save button. And to create a save button, let's just create a variable here and just say save label, and I just call that save button right here. All right. So actually, before I kind of create this save button right here, I would like to run the application to see how the UI is just basically looking so far. And to do that, we can just do root and we'll do dot. I think it's actually called a main loop. So do main loop in here, and we can save the changes. So if we hit on run, and you see that we are kind of getting the interface right here, except that we do not actually have a button yet. So let's find a way to add a button. And to do that, we need to do that just before the main loop right here. So I'm gonna just create a variable that I'm gonna just call save button, and go ahead and then set that to be equal to tk, and it's gonna be dot button right there. And within this save button right here, what I want to do, first of all, let's enter our root in here, because we're going to just make sure we tie that to the root. And you can do text, and that's just basically the text you want to see on the save button. So we just basically call this save, or you can use something like submit if you want to use submit. All right. So let's introduce a command here, and we're going to just run a command. So this is going to be command, and we set the command to be equal to save underscore to. So this is going to be MySQL. So we're going to just do that right here to be able to save that. And we do not actually need this on this particular line, so I'm going to introduce a command here and set the font style right here. So this is going to be font equal to, and what we want right here, this is going to be Helvetica, just like we did earlier. But I want to go ahead and I copy that from here, and let's go ahead and I paste that on this. Okay, so we have that right there. And if we want to make that bold, we can introduce an extra comma right there and just try to kind of make that a little bit bold. All right, so we're going to introduce a comma in here, and the next thing I want to do is to set a background. So this is going to be BG if we want to set a background, and we're basically going to use the same background that we set earlier for this. So I'm going to copy this right here and just put that right here. Okay, to set the background for that particular save button or submit button. So if we have that right there, the next thing is to set it for an FG right here, which is just we've done that before. So I'm just looking to copy FG, and I'm gonna just basically go ahead and set that to be equal to white right there, right? So that's just the font color. So this is going to be white, which means it's going to just basically have the same color, right? So we have that on that particular place, and we can introduce a comma on the outside in here. And then the next thing we want to do is to there's something called the active background that we can actually use. So if we use active background right here to show that that particular button is actually active, we can go ahead and set a color that we would like to use. All right, so to do that, I'm going to just do 0F701 right there. So this is just the background I want to use right here. So if you introduce a command here, and then the next thing I want to do is to pad that by the x-axis. All right, so this is going to be pad x, and we can set that to be equal to, maybe this is going to be 10 pixels right there, and introduce a comma. And then the next one is to pad that by y-axis. So this is going to be pad y, and what do we basically want to use on the pad y, so we can set that something like 5 pixels. And finally, what I want to do is to I'm going to just do relief right here, and go ahead and set that to be equal to, this is going to be tk, and we're going to just do dot flat right here, that as a capital letter on that particular line, and that is just that on that particular line. So I want you to just like basically take a look at the code that we have on this line so far. So starting from here, and if you take a look at that, you see that we're basically setting everything. So we have the white foreground for the text, the active background right here, and we do have already set the pad X right here to 10 pixel. This is the pad Y, and we're just relieving the button right here just to release the button. All right, so that's just that on that particular line. And the next thing I want to do, I think we really need to, so if I hit sorry about that. So if you scroll down a little bit, what I want to basically do right here is I want to press and enter right here, and I want to go ahead and try to go ahead and then save add a padding to the save button. All right, so to add a padding to save button. So I'm going to just do save button right here, and I'm going to just do dot, and we'll just do pack, not just to add the padding rather. So I just basically want to pack it to the window, the main window that we have. All right. So to do that, I will just do this and then go ahead and then do padding right here, and I basically want to go ahead and set that to 20 pixels. All right. So with that line, should be able to like have a nice looking submit button or save button, just like we rightly called it. All right. So if we save the changes on this place right here, and what we need to do is if we hit here to run the application, and I think we do have an error. So if you take a look at line 59, save button, so we're kind of having an issue right here on this particular line. I think this needs to be in quotes. So let's put that in quotes right here. So let's go ahead, put that in quotes, save the changes, and then run that again. And I think we do have the save button, but the color of the save button right here, I don't think, I mean, the background right here, I don't think it's actually correct. So we need to find a way to make sure that we change the background right there. So this is the background of that particular save button, and that's just, you can clearly see that it's not a navy background, and we need to have that as a navy background. So let's look for navy background. Here's a decimal values right here. So I want to copy this and make use of that on that particular line. So if you scroll down a little bit and we look for where we have our background right here, I want to replace that, save the changes, and I want to run this again. And it looks a little bit better right here, but I don't think it looks like the original right here. So we need to take a look at the background and then a few of other things that we basically have right here to be able to, before we can go ahead and then even test that. All right, so I want you guys to just take a look at this. I've actually changed the hexadecimal value right here, and let's save the changes. Just make sure you change your own to what we got right here, and then hit in here, and you see that it looks a little bit just like the original right here. So if you hit on save without entering anything, it says that both fields are required. And if you fill, let's say if I close this right here, and let's fill the first for me here, so this is going to be Victor, and maybe we do not actually fill the second one and then try to hit and save, you see that it still complains. All right, so until we kind of fill the two forms out, and that's the only time we should be able to pass that particular stage. All right, so this is going to be gmail.com, and you can hit on save right here. So before we do that, I want to take a look at our browser, I mean our database right here, to make sure that we don't have anything on that particular place. All right, so if we go back right here and I hit on save, and see where they say something like a data saved successfully. So if you hit OK, it clears the form, and if you minimize and then let's hit on browse, you see that the data kind of came in, but I think the name and then the email came in as empty strings right here. All right, so we need to find out why that is actually kind of doing that. So let's find out, guys. So if we go back to our code in here, I think that basically our code looks just neat. All right, our code looks a lot neat. We do not actually have any issue with our code right here. And I think that the problem that we're just basically getting, remember that this was actually out of fields at that time that I was creating this database. All right, so if we go to the structure right here, and let's say if you take a look in here, you see that the types right here are actually set in int. So we need to change this from integer to something like varchar. All right, so this is just basically a wrong type to basically use. All right, so change this. And for this one, so this one becomes varchar if you take a look at that. So we need to also change that to varchar, this particular one called the email. So let's hit on change and change this to varchar, and then we'll save. So we basically don't need to like do anything extra. So we can, let's close this first of all. And if we go back to our code right here, so run this again, and this time around, this is going to be code Adam, and let's do code Adam at gmail.com, and then we hit on save. That was saved successfully. Now if we take a look at our database right here, if we go to the browse, you now see that the data just came in the way that they should just basically come in. All right, so this first one is just because we set the what is it called, the type right here. We set that the kind of a set or the type right here to something like integer. That was a mistake on my side because it's a prefield and I did not actually take a look at that, and I believe that a good number of you actually saw that before now. So this is just basically how to be able to create a desktop application and be able to save your data into a database, and I hope you kind of enjoyed it. And if you enjoyed that, feel free to give the video a like. And I think I will see you guys in the next one. Bye bye for now.